What is up, guys? This is Alex from the Stands MMA here, giving my fresh reaction to all the action that just went down at UFC 285. And man, what a card. Now, look, I'm going to have some opinions on this one that I think are going to be a little unpopular, but I'll try and explain them the best as I can. And again, these are just my thoughts. Unfortunately, my co-host Josh can't be with us today. He's got some stuff that he has to take care of, but I'm sure that he'll be able to give his thoughts at some point in the near future. But getting straight into it, I'm going to go over a few of the prelim bouts before we move straight onto the main card. So look, going over the prelims, there's a few bouts I want to touch on. I thought Dricus du Plessis looked good against Derek Brunson. I said halfway through the fight, and I haven't watched any of the post-fight presser or anything like that, as I said, fresh off the card, but it looked to me in the fight like this was Derek Brunson's last fight. You know, the way that he was kind of smiling when he was, starting to get dominated in the second, just his general attitude, it seemed like he was more happy to be in the fight rather than to win. And you look, perhaps that's just how I'm reading it, but I really wouldn't be surprised if this was Derek Brunson's last fight. He did not look, to the level that he's looked in the past. And Dricus du Plessis, look, it was a really, really good win for him. I think he's going to start to run into trouble with some of the more technical, high level guys in the division, especially those that have, a gas tank that's able to progress past the first and second round. A common criticism with Derek Brunson has been that he gasses out quite quickly. So, in terms of where Dricus du Plessis goes next, it's really interesting. But, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts to have some tougher fights at the top of the division. And for Derek Brunson, if he doesn't retire, it's tough. Given his age, given where he's at in the division currently, it's a tough sell, man. And I'd like to see him retire before, he ends up on a 4-5 fight losing streak all by KO. I don't want to see that happen. Derek Brunson's been a veteran of the game for so long. I'd like to see him walk away. Okay, now moving on to the one that I think I'm maybe going to catch a little flack for. Cody Garbrandt and Trevin Giles. I don't think Cody looked that good. I really didn't. I don't think Cody's entries to the wrestling, they were amazing. They were awesome. His entries were excellent. What he did with the wrestling, it wasn't that good. And even his striking, and I understand that he didn't do as much striking in this fight as he did in his previous fights, but even his striking, it just didn't have that same pop, that same aggression, that same sort of crispness to it. I understand there's the element of he's been knocked out now a few times. He's been very, very careful, but I just don't think Cody looked good. I even thought he looked a little bit soft, physically, getting into the cage. Where Cody goes from here, man, after a performance like that, I don't see him beating any of the upper echelon of the division. I really don't. It's tough. Where do you go with Cody from here? And keep in mind, even 2 or so years ago, when Cody was only on a 2 or 3 fight losing streak, we were talking about how he would destroy Sean O'Malley. Now, I'm not so sure. I think Sean O'Malley would crack him now. So it's tough where Cody goes from here. You could maybe do a rematch with Dominic Cruz. There's maybe some interest in that, but I'd like to see Cody maybe have another maybe big sort of fun fight and maybe call it, man, just because off what I saw tonight and off all the damage he's already taken, I just don't see him getting to that belt. I really don't. It's really tough for me to see that. Look, he needed the win and he got the win. He did what he needed to do, but he just didn't look like the same Cody in that fight, at least to me. But look, we're going to move on to the main card. Bo Nickel against Jamie Pickett. Again, I think I'm going to catch some flack for this. Look, Bo Nickel dominated. It's about what we expected. He dominated. However, his approach to finishing that head arm, it wasn't very technical. Looking purely at the jiu-jitsu level of it, he didn't try to get his hips off to the side. He didn't really try to close off the space with his head. It was essentially just more of a squeeze, except right before the very end, which is why the head arm took so long to finish. And before the wrestling, I understand it was a short fight, but before the wrestling, his striking did not look good. Look, everyone knows what Bo Nickel's going to do. You just can't stop it. He is an incredibly high level wrestler, arguably the best wrestler in the division so far. And he's still going to dominate so many people, but he's got to work on those other skills. I understand he got the very slick triangle finish in his last fight. There's a world of difference between finishing a triangle and finishing a head arm choke. Look, again, good win for him. He did what he was expected to do. Where he goes from here, I think it's time to start giving him some more actual names in the division that people are familiar with. But look, overall, he got the win. He did what he needed to do. Moving on, Mateus Gamrot versus Jalen Turner. I thought Jalen Turner was really going to switch him off. I really did. First round was pretty close, but then in the second, Mateus really started to run away with it. In terms of people, Jalen needs to work on his wrestling, and of course he does. Every fighter needs to work on every single skill all the time. However, this was a close fight. And I think at the end of the day, it just came down to a bit of a case of Jalen didn't have the escape mechanics in order to get out of some of those positions once the takedown was had. As I said, though, close fight. I don't think it hurts Jalen's stock too much. Obviously, puts a bit of a stop to the momentum, but with one or two big wins, he's right back in there. So that was a really good fight. Moving on, Geoff Neal, Shavkat Rakhmonov. Geoff Neal did a lot better than I thought he was going to do. I thought Shavkat Rakhmonov was going to dominate this fight pretty clearly and get the finish in the second or the third. Whilst he did get the finish in the third, Geoff Neal made this a fight. Geoff Neal was cracking him multiple times, had Shavkat rocked at least once or twice. I really think Geoff Neal gave a really good account of himself in this fight. Shavkat definitely, he's a talent, 17 wins, 17 finishes. What can you say? And now he's getting those finishes against the higher levels in the division, but definitely needs to shore up his defense a little bit. I understand a lot of the story of this is he has a really good chin, and he clearly does. But you don't want to rely on that chin. And it's interesting that he had this sort of hard fight because whilst not on the same level, we saw a similar thing with Khamzat and Gilbert Burns. So yeah, very interesting career parallel, but good win for Shavkat. Where he goes from here. Welterweight, you could maybe do something like a Bilal Muhammad. I don't think Bilal would take that fight, not because he's scared, just doesn't make sense for Bilal, to be honest. You could maybe do Wonder Boy. There's a few fun options in there for Shavkat, but he's going to be one to keep an eye on for sure. So look, moving on through the card, Valentina Shevchenko, Alexa Grasso. I am so hyped for this. So guys, and I've got the receipts to back this up. I called this over a year ago. I said Alexa Grasso is going to give Valentina her toughest fight and potentially beat her. The reason that is that I saw Alexa Grasso just has far crisper boxing, not kickboxing, but boxing. Alexa Grasso was improving at a rapid rate through all her fights. You could see her wrestling getting better, her jiu-jitsu getting better. I knew Alexa Grasso was going to win this fight. And when you looked at the first round, Alexa was catching her clean with a few shots. And I don't like to make excuses, especially when it comes to Alexa Grasso. Anyone who's been listening to us for a while knows I'm a huge fan of Alexa Grasso, but Valentina looked a little bit off to me. I don't know if it was physical. I don't know if it was mental, a motivation thing. I don't know. But to me personally, she looked a little bit off. But what a win for Alexa Grasso. Potentially one of the biggest upsets or if not one of the biggest upsets in female MMA history. And if anything now, if Valentina can come back and get the victory, and then assuming they do a trilogy and Valentina wins there, this makes the fight between Valentina and Nunes 3 so much more interesting because they're career parallels. If Valentina can get the victory, of course, they both, Nunes lost that one fight, comes back, gets the victory, comes back in third fight, gets the victory there. Now Valentina can do the same thing. I really think though that Alexa Grasso is going to beat her in the immediate rematch. I really do. I think Alexa Grasso is going to beat her in the immediate rematch. Alexa Grasso is just improving so much, and there's so much footage on Valentina. Valentina is one of the best female MMA fighters to ever live. That is a 100% certainty. But when there is that much footage on you, and you tend to fight in a very similar way in each fight, people will start to catch up. They'll start to catch up. So look, great win for Alexa Grasso. I couldn't be happier for her. And this really adds some excitement to that division because, the narrative for so long was becoming, oh, here we go, another Valentina title defense. But I knew it. I knew Alexa Grasso was going to get this. So if someone can answer that phone because I called it. But look, moving on to the main event. Okay, this is the one that I think is going to bother people. So look, great win for Jon Jones. Got the guillotine early, took very little damage, made it look easy. Great win for Jon Jones. Here's the thing. For me personally, so this is just how I view it. This is not, how my co-host views it. This is not how anyone else. This is how I view it. I still cannot consider Jon Jones to be the GOAT. I just can't. When you've had this many drug test failures, you've had this many controversies, and I think it's reasonable at the very least to assume that earlier on in his career, he was definitely juicing. When you look at his performances early in his career compared to later, it was a great win for Jon Jones. And obviously the next fight is, going to be most likely Stipe. And if not Stipe, I'd assume Sergey Pavlovich. I personally, I can't consider John Jones the GOAT. And look, I accept, I have a degree of bias against John Jones. I accept this. I've been very clear on this. You know, anytime that Josh and I have sat down and discussed John Jones, or I've talked about John Jones on here, I'm very clear. I am negatively biased towards John Jones. I accept that. I recognize his skills, his pure skills as a martial artist rate him as one of the best of all time, and that he is an incredibly high level fighter with excellent fight IQ. He's well rounded and he just has that sort of savage mentality to win. I accept all that. My argument is I just can't consider him the GOAT off this many PED fellas. I can't. I can't. And I understand now he's won the heavyweight belt. The sort of the dream has been achieved, but I just, for me, I don't think I can get over that sort of that hump that's there. And I know that they had the picogram rule change now, but the thing is that even though you've changed the rule now, at the time, the rule stated that you couldn't have that. So, but look, focusing on the win again, John Jones did what I think a lot of people thought he was going to do. I did have Garn winning this fight. I thought Garn would be able to stick on the outside a little bit, but John Jones did a really good job getting his double unders, circling around to the back, dragging Cyril down, keeping him down, and then getting that guillotine. And as DC said, initially it looked like an early tap, and then you watch it back and you're like, okay, yeah, that was a tight guillotine. Really good win for John Jones. As I said, I imagine it's going to be Stipe next. I would favor. And again, as I just said, I'm negatively biased against John Jones, but I recognize his skills. I'd favor John Jones against Stipe. If this was Stipe before the second or first DC fight, I'd probably say Stipe's got a really good chance. But Stipe's a lot older at this point. Stipe's had some damage put on him. He's had some wars, and Stipe's been out a really long time as well. I'd be inclined to give the fight to John Jones in that. For Cyril Gahn, where does he go from here? It's interesting because he's now had his second crack at the title in a very short period as well, and he's lost. So if you beat someone else in the top 5, what do you do with him? Does he become the essentially the number one contender that's just there forever? Can't beat the champion, but he can beat everybody else. So it's really interesting. So look, guys, as I said, this is my instant reaction to the card. I haven't watched any of the post-fight presser yet, so maybe some of the stuff I'm saying has already been counted there, but I don't know. As I said, guys, these are just my thoughts. These are not, Josh's thoughts or anyone else. This is just how I view this card today. Out of a rating of 10, I'd give this card, I'd give it a 7. I think I expected a little bit more action in some of these fights. Nothing on the fighters, just how it played out. But overall, I'd give this a 7. Also, guys, just to say, all of our interviews and coverage from last night's Beatdown Promotions event here in Brisbane is up on our YouTube channel, so be sure to check that. And guys, we are smashing out the content for you every single week. So if you guys can hit that subscribe button down below, support the journey, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.